Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Barbershop Love Stories, where we highlight the stories of men and get their take on love, relationships, dating, all the things. My name is Lena West, and I'm the founder. And my special guest today is Ty.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hey, Ty.
Hey.
So, Ty, tell me a little bit about your past leading up to getting married and just a little bit about yourself, period.
Well, I've been doing hair for a long time. I
Okay,
have a couple of Emmy nominations for hair and makeup. I
incredible.
own a clothing company in the Philippines, and so I've just always been a creative person, overall. Yes.
Okay. And then you have been married for how long?
This January 4th will be 24 years married, 26 years I've been with my wife in total.
Wow.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit, what was going on in your life beforehand?
Beforehand, I was like every other single guy. I was looking for love, possibly in all the wrong places.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting on God. I was, told by several people who were married that I shared my desires to be married. Enjoy your singleness, enjoy your singleness, enjoy your singleness.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, especially from the church people, in my mind, I'm thinking that you got somebody to, lay with
Snuggle
at
with,
night. Yeah.
yes, for
So
real.
I'm like, I want to be able to do this and it not be called to sin.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I am married, I definitely understand what they meant by that passage.
And so what do you think that they meant? Because I mean, there's some people when they say enjoy your singleness, that means that I am actively sleeping with people. And then there's other people who are like, no, that means that you're entertaining people and you're traveling and you're doing all kinds of things. What do you think that?
I think when people tell you to enjoy your singleness, I think it's open for interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it now hindsight, when I tell people that, I mean, listen, take the time to know who you are.
Oof,
Take
that
the
right
time
there.
to travel.
Yeah.
Take the time to do
Mm-hmm.
all the things you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Take the time to discover who you are to the point that you can honestly say you like or dislike the person that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I tell my daughter, who's about to be 22 in July, as she's looking for love and she wants to be with someone, I always tell her, her name is Ayana. I say, Ayana, take a good long hard look at yourself and then ask yourself, are you ready to bring another person in the world
Mm-hmm.
like you? And then think about that person, because that person is going to be also a mini, version of that person. So basically, what I'm saying to her is, can you afford to live with, all the negatives that you dislike about yourself? You
Mm-hmm.
know, so definitely take the time to know who you are. Take the time to travel. Take the time to explore. Take the time to take the time.
So I've noticed with these interviews that almost every man says that. Not necessarily like take the time to entertain a whole bunch of other women. That's part of it. You meet women, but to really build on who they are as a man
Hmm.
beforehand.
Hmm.
And so it sounds like that's a very critical thing when it comes to, future marriages and the health
Absolutely.
of it.
Absolutely.
So do you feel like your dating history beforehand was full of dramatics, or was it pretty much, I met somebody, didn't work out, on to the next?
Um, for me, it wasn't. I dated
Mm-hmm.
when I could. For me, my life as a kid, it was tough. It
Mm-hmm.
was a life, and I think anybody's life is a life. For me, I was sodomized as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and so for me, I grew up. I was in a time and a place where I didn't feel like my life had meaning because something so tragic had happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was suicidal. I was depressed. I think part of the reason why I'm still here is because I would hear my grandmother always say, at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
baby, if you kill yourself, you're going to die and go to hell. And I thought to myself, I don't want to go to hell and see the same people that
Who?
caused me hell.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah.
so I began to pray to God, take
Mm-hmm.
me, take me, take me,
Mm-hmm.
until God began to speak. And, He came to then to deliver, to heal, to set free.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, my life wasn't spent on necessarily trying to find somebody to lay on top of.
Mhm.
It was trying to navigate, you know, the shitstorm that I had been, that has had befallen me.
Mhm.
Trying to navigate the voices that
Mhm.
told me to end it all,
Mhm.
to navigate the voices that told me you're not good enough,
Mhm.
to navigate the voices that told me, see, I told you you wouldn't win. You know, that's what I had to contend with, in order to get to the place that I am now.
Were you in like elementary school? Was this a teenage age
I
or
had just graduated elementary school going into high school. So I
mm,
was 12, this is around 85. I was 12 in 85. I graduated elementary school and went to high school. I was in eighth grade in uh, 86,
mhm.
13.
Wow. And then was there anything that did you tell anybody or did you just carry that
Well, I
in,
did
with
attempt
you?
to tell my mom, but,
Mhm.
because I didn't deliver as swiftly as she wanted.
Mm.
It's like, how do you deliver something like that?
Yeah.
And I remember her saying to me, boy, go sit your ass down. It don't take all this time to tell something. And so in doing so, I walked away, further broken, in tears, and now with a newfound enemy because I resented her.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was talking to someone this week and it, it, the brokenness that comes when a mother does not protect a son is something
yeah,
serious.
it is.
And it has consequences that trickle into multiple areas of that man's life,
Absolutely.
especially identity. So, did you struggle with identity?
I
Did
think
that
at,
shape
I think
things?
at some point we all do.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to feel like you're not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
you know, good enough according to whose standards.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, um, you question what was it about me
Yeah.
that made
Mm-hmm.
this
Why was
chain
I
of
the
events
target?
happen. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so you may not have all the answers. You may not understand because, you know, you and I could look at something and see it two totally different directions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like men and women go into the room and a man may say it's clean, but a woman says it's not clean.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we're two different people, we have two different ways of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
two different this, two different that. So it was based on, um, you know, what I felt, where I should be at this point
Mm-hmm.
versus what my reality actually was.
Okay. So that happened, and then you get upper in age. Does that determine the types of people that you date?
It definitely determined the type of people I was around.
Mm.
Um, for a long time, I no longer trusted black people.
Wow.
I definitely no longer trusted black people.
Mm.
And people say, "Well, how can you hate?" I didn't say I hated, but I definitely had no trust.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because as a kid, I felt like my innocence was taken,
Mm-hmm.
and children
And it
could never
was.
win. Yeah,
Yeah.
children could never win against an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So that has made me a true child advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll fight you over your own child, mistreating your child. And if you're disciplining that child with respect, amen. But if
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're disciplining your child or reacting to your child out of anger, I'm gonna step in. And so it's definitely made me a true child advocate for their safety because I just feel like they will never win. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it's caused me to watch my children like a hawk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once I had kids, I became the room parent.
Mm-hmm.
I was there every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for grandparents' day. This day, that day. I was always the chaperone. I was always doing this. I became the president of the PTA.
Mm-hmm.
I became the chairman on the. I sat on the board of committees. SACS board of committees at DeKalb County Schools for my kids. I was very active. I even ran for a seat on the board.
Mm-hmm.
I was extremely active in my children's lives because I knew what bad parenting looked like.
Right. Right. Um, so did you tell anyone and they believed you?
I told my cousin, she's
Okay.
my favorite cousin, Joyce,
Uh-huh.
and so she believed it.
Okay.
She believed it. Yeah.
Was there anything done?
No, no, because I told my wife when we got together, and because you explain to her, your spouse, your intended, why you are the way you are sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and she was angry but he ended up getting hit by a drunk driver, and it killed him instantly.
Really? Wow. Did that give you closure, or was it still like, the damage had
Um,
been done?
it's almost like, what is closure? Closure is different things to different people. You know what I mean? It gave me. I felt like justice was served
Mm,
when they told me he was killed.
mm-hmm,
I was like, I did. I remember saying, justice was served. God said He would take care of it, and He did.
mm-hmm,
Um, I no longer harp about it. I used to hear people say, to forgive is to forget. I
mm.
don't believe that.
I
You
don't
can
either.
never forget something that tragic
Mm-hmm,
that's happened to you. Um, I do believe that it is necessary for you to forgive yourself and
mm-hmm,
forgive people in order for you to move on. Because sometimes we get stuck there. We get stuck in that moment.
mm-hmm,
And the professionals say, the first time it happens to you, that's a mistake. But when you relive it constantly, then it's self imposed.
mm-hmm,
And so I don't want to live a life of self imposing. There's bigger fish to fry.
mm-hmm.
We all have an expiration date.
We do.
And I want to be able to live a full life,
Yes.
and a full life without regret and apologies.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to move on.
Understandable. Well, talking about a full life, tell me a little bit about the origin story of how you met your wife and what was going on in that season of life for you.
When I met my wife, I was set up on a blind date.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being at church, and I was dating this other girl, or in the beginning phases.
Okay.
And um, one spiritual mother told me, she said, I know you feel you've met the one, but I hear the Lord saying, no. I hear the Lord saying, just like, David had a Bathsheba, you have a Bathsheba. But I also hear
Mm.
the Lord saying, just like David knew how to repent, the Lord said, you know how to repent. And at that same service, then, the other one came up, and she was like, this woman that God got for you.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the Lord saying, she's coming from a far off land.
Wow.
And she said, I'm looking at this big bag over your head in the spirit. And she said, in this bag is everything you ask God for.
Mm.
She said, the houses, the cars, the
Mm-hmm.
monies, the land, the this, the that. It's all in one big package.
Mm-hmm.
And then she came back and she said, and I hear the Lord saying, by the time your spouse get to you, she's going to know everything about you.
Mm.
And she was like, let's praise God for this. And so when I met my wife,
And you would have been, excuse me, you would have been about how old?
oh God, maybe 24,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm now at MAC Cosmetics at
Mm-hmm.
Lenox, and one of their top artists, and one of my friends who works at she worked at Shiseido. She happened to be a Japanese girl married to a black man,
Uh-huh.
and we're good friends. And so
Mm-hmm.
she's setting me up with all these people. She set me up with this Chinese girl. She set me up with this other person. So she talks about this other girl,
Mm-hmm.
that she's friends with. She's like, she's coming. I'm telling her about you. I think y'all are gonna be great.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. I said, great. So she comes into the counter, and we meet. We talk, but she has a friend that kind of stands back,
Okay.
and she doesn't say much. I don't even think we acknowledge each other's presence.
Mm-hmm.
And but I do remember her.
Mm-hmm.
Even to this day, I remember what she had on.
Mm-hmm.
And then they walk away. And so then my friend comes back to me again, and she tells me, hey, I have a friend that came here to learn English. She wants to learn English to take a job back in Japan. That IBM had offered her a management position.
Wow.
I told her, she wants somebody to practice English with. I mentioned you, can you help my friend out? I said, sure, no problem.
You're a nice guy. Of course.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
The friend that she needed me to help her out was the friend that I just met that was a friend of the blind date. So, which is now my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get together, we meet a few times, and I think 2 or 3 times that we meet, there's always a third person because I want her to feel comfortable.
Uh-huh.
And so then she asked me, and she goes, why haven't you asked me out? And I say to her, I thought it was just platonic. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be respectful. And so I do, and we go out, and we end up going out for her 20th birthday. Our first date was on her 20th birthday at Planet Hollywood, which was downtown across from Hard Rock Cafe
Hmm.
on Peachtree Street.
Wow.
Yeah.
What point did you know, this might be something?
Um, it was really it was really like whirlwind in what my
Hmm.
terms of a whirlwind romance is. It just happened and everything just kind of happened. You know, we were together. You know, we were doing what lovers do. You know, all that came along with that position.
Let's pause on that. So you're in the church though.
Yes.
Um, your heart, are you in a backslidden state or are you um, fully committed, but you just had,
I wouldn't
a
say I
mess
was in a
up?
backslidden state. You know, sometimes, people commit and do things and they're not necessarily backslidden,
Hmm.
because there
Yeah,
is a thing called grace.
right. And we're all sinners, so
Yes. And
yeah.
so because of grace, many of us do many things.
Hmm.
I'm not saying it's right, but many of us do many things and it's not necessarily a backslidden state. It's probably more of I've given yield to my flesh.
Hmm.
And so, certainly that's what it was. We're enjoying each other.
Hmm.
We're having the time of our lives. She could barely speak English. I remember the first time we were intimate. We were at the JW Marriott in Lenox, and that was after her birthday dinner, and so I booked this room at the Marriott, and it's directly across the street from Lenox, and we're there, and I remember looking at the Jeffersons,
Hmm.
and it was May 28th. It was my mom's birthday, so I remember
Hmm.
all that, and I was looking at the TV, and I kept saying, "Do you understand? Do you want to see something?" She was like, "I don't understand nothing.
Wow.
I don't understand nothing." So, and I thought to myself, you understand something, but and then I went back to work the next day with the same clothes on, with the walk of shame, but I had a huge smile on my face. So yes, yes.
Okay, so clearly well, I shouldn't say clearly. Are you saying that she wasn't spiritually where you were at?
She was not. She definitely was not.
And with you being in the church, how did you work that out in your mind? Because I mean, it's drilled from day one.
Yes.
Don't be equally yoked.
Right, right, right.
Don't be,
Yes. Well, the old folk when I grew up, because I'll be 53 in August. So the old folk were like, if you're thinking it, you're going to hell.
yeah.
And so I always thought to myself, I was always real. And I used to think to myself, if you're going to go to hell over a thought, you might as well go and get this thing. Go
Hmm.
to hell over the real thing. Don't ever go to hell over a thought. If
Hmm.
you're thinking it, go forth in it. And so every time I thought it, I went forth in it. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's an honest
Yeah.
take.
Yes.
Honest take. So, do you feel like you're spiritually equal now?
Um, a little bit more, not necessarily full. I think she understands the call that's there.
Mm-hmm.
I think she understands that, sometimes when you get with someone with the call, that call is something that sometimes um, is over the house. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
like you come into a kingdom. It's sort of like when you think about Esther and, what she had to go through in her process of being purified.
Mm-hmm.
In in the book of Esther, it speaks of the king, and he had a wife. He had a wife prior to Vashti, and she was banished. She was
Mm-hmm.
banished because of her, lack of obedience.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that had her banished was she was told to dance before the people, and she felt it was beneath her. And because she did not, because the town men, they kind of cried out. They was like, "Well, listen, if the queen would disobey the king, we don't have no hope.
Mm-hmm.
We in trouble."
Mm-hmm.
And so there had to be some action that took place, some swift action to say, we won't allow this. But I also feel like had Esther had wisdom, and I'm just paraphrasing, had she just said, "My Lord, the men will lust after me," but maybe something else would happen. But anyway, Esther still had to go through a process of purification.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that she needed to do in order to obtain. And so when she married the king, she became the queen in title. But it wasn't until the king, the Bible says he extended the scepter. When he extended the scepter, he gave her half his kingdom. So that's when she became an equal with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Bible said that he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtains favor
Mm-hmm.
from the Lord. It never said that the man never had favor prior to, but evidently there's a level of favor
Mm-hmm.
that comes along with marriage. And so for me, I was grateful. I was grateful. And so, yes, she certainly understands, biblical principles.
Mm-hmm.
She's not afraid. In the beginning when we got married, she would hear me speak in tongue,
Mm-hmm.
she would laugh.
And she had come from a like a Buddhist
A
background.
Buddhist, yes. My
Okay.
father-in-law was a very high-level Buddhist
Okay.
minister, like Tina Turner, the Nam Myoho Reiki
Yeah, all
type
that.
thing, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so he was very, very well known in,
Mm.
the Japanese, sect and temples and shrines and stuff. And yeah, so that it was not as big of a clash as I thought it would be, but it was certainly interesting.
I'm stunned. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely stunned because I would think that on paper the marriage would be just rocked with a lot of confusion and a lot of discord. But you're saying that that really hasn't been your
Well,
experience?
for me, as I said, earlier, the Japanese they consider themselves in the Asian world to be the creme de la creme of the
Mm.
Asian world. So they are the top of the Asian totem pole. And he didn't want his daughter to marry
Mm-hmm.
outside her race.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like the Chinese or the Koreans where, it's like, ooh, she's bringing home a white man. We've arrived.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese don't
Yeah.
feel like that. Over here in Atlanta, you don't have a lot of them. You see a lot of Koreans and Chinese. The Japanese is a very small community, so small that everyone tends to know of each other or
Mm-hmm.
have heard of, and they come to do work and they go back home.
Mm-hmm.
They have no desire to stay here. Because why? When you go to Japan, there's really no crime. The police officers don't even carry guns. Nobody's robbing, nobody's maiming, nobody's killing.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you give that up to come here
Mm-hmm.
and be caught up in that?
Right.
So when he said to her, "I don't want you to marry outside your race," she was like, "Fine." She didn't agree with him. She was like, "Whatever." And so she came over here to live. And when she would go home, he noticed a change. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
"You're very mature. You're very this. You're very that.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What are you doing there?" And she said, "It's that black man you don't want me to marry."
Wow.
And so he said, "If this guy has made this big of an impact in your life, I want to meet him."
Mm-hmm.
And so my 26th birthday, I went to Japan.
How
No,
did that
27th.
how did that go?
It was definitely, it was awkward. It was
Mm-hmm.
awkward. I had already proposed to her at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was awkward because I didn't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that he didn't want her to marry me. Um, I stayed in the house with them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Separate rooms?
no, no,
Really?
and that also kind of scared me because I remember the first day there, I think I slept the whole time because of the time difference,
Mm-hmm.
and we shared the bed. And I remember one day my mother-in-law coming in, just bursting through the door.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, and I
As
thought,
mamas do.
right, and so I thought, wow, and I'm literally laying there in my underwear,
Mm.
and I'm thinking, what if we had been doing this? What if we had,
What if, y'all?
yeah, what
What
if?
if?
Yes. And
Mm.
so I'm just like, wow, this is different. And the whole time I'm thinking, this is unreal. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're not upset if they are. And they're very gracious people.
Mm-hmm.
We as Americans, we say what we feel. You piss us off and we're like, I never liked you anyway.
Right.
But they will never say that. They will never say that.
Mm-hmm.
They're always kind, but behind the scenes, they're like, "Oh God, I'm so tired of looking at his face. I'm so tired. How long do I have to suffer this person in my house?"
Right.
So it's very different.
Did they come to the wedding?
Well, we had a wedding here.
Uh-huh.
We actually went to the courthouse,
Okay.
and they gave us this huge party back there.
Mm-hmm.
This layered, this 4-layered cake, this tiered cake. It had edible gold. It
Mm-hmm.
had fruit. It had this, it had that. It was really, really nice. They had, rhinestones on it. It was really, really nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to jump backwards and ask you, did you have just one day where you woke up and you were like, this is it? Or was it more of like a slow, okay, she's checking this off, she's checking this off, she's checking this off. And then it was almost like an awakening that this is it?
It was we were great. It was wonderful. But the thing that kept me from asking, because she asked me why haven't I asked her yet,
Mm-hmm.
and I told her I felt like we were unequally yoked,
Oh, okay.
and so um, she knew I was a minister,
Mm-hmm.
at the church, and so I remember her, sitting.
Like you were ordained at this point, or?
Yeah, I was already licensed. I've been licensed since I was 17, able to marry people.
Oh, wow.
And so she said to me in the driveway of my mother's home, and she was crying, and she was like, God this, God this, God that,
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like she was mad with God. And so she
Yeah.
looked up to heaven and she said, if you want my life, then give me this man. Because if you don't, I'm not going to serve you. That's exactly what she said, no lie. She said, I am not going to serve you. I'm going to die and go to hell. And I told her, I said, this is what you just said to God. If you want this gift that I possess, give me this man. Because if you don't, I will take me and this gift to hell. I said, God is going to honor that. And so we got married.
Wow.
We got married. And after the year before we got married, we lost a set of twins.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got married, after we had our daughter, we were sitting there because we used to love to go to Cafe Intermezzo and have drinks. And so she said to me, Ty, she was drunk. She said, Ty, because I used to always ask God, have I made a mistake? Have I made a mistake? Have I made a mistake? If this isn't the one, please tell me. I will get out of it. I will end it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just bear, I'll be whatever they call me. I just want to be in your will for my life.
Mm-hmm.
And she began to talk. She said, when her friend, she said her friend used to talk about me all the time to her. She said, my friend talked about you all the time. She was like, my friend in America has this guy, and his name is this, and he's this, and he does this, and he's this, and he has this, and he's ready for this. And so as she was talking, the Lord spoke. He said, pay attention, son. You've been asking me, is this the one?
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting ready to show you. And so the prophecy from my spiritual mother came back to my wife was coming from afar off, but by the time she get here, she would know everything about me. So my wife revealed to me that before she stepped foot in Atlanta, she knew my name, age, marital status. She knew where I worked. She knew everything about me, And so God was like, this is the one.
Wow.
This is the one. And
Wow.
honestly, it broke me down. I remember tearing up because I thought in all that I have encompassed in my life, when I thought growing up that my life was nothing more than a measuring stick for other people to measure their success by, God was letting me know, I chose you.
Mm-hmm.
I care about you. And just like I promised, I'm going to make good on every promise that I promised you.
Has there been throughout the years more God moments like that where He shares with you clear things, clear
Absolutely.
directions?
Absolutely.
What about in relation to the marriage itself or to your wife?
Um, it's not uncommon. Like if my wife was sitting here, she would tell you, it's not uncommon. Like I have these two prayer taleets, and it is not uncommon for them to wake up wrapped up like mummies, her and my kids. I'm speaking in tongue. I'm going to, I go to bed, they go to bed, and I may be up praying 2, 3 in the morning. And, it just depends on how the spirit moves, and I'm there. So, yeah, she's totally used to it now.
Yeah. Because that was your story, do you teach your children that you're not supposed to sleep with someone before you?
Absolutely. I tell my daughter all the time, I said, Ayana, I would love for you to be married before you become intimate. And like all children, she goes, well, Dad, well, you were not married. And that's true. Yes, that is true. I was not. But that don't mean you have to follow in my steps. You know, I always tell my kids and my daughter, I say, if you feel like you gotta have it, I would love to know because I'm your father. I would love to be able to share some wisdom because the game hasn't changed. The
Mm-hmm.
players have because the game is still tell her whatever you need to tell her to get
Mm-hmm.
what you need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I need to put you up on game, but I also need to make sure you're ready because you know I keep telling her you're my child as much as you are your mother's child, and just because you're a female, it don't mean you can't come to me
Mm-hmm.
with female issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so my daughter and I are very, very, very close. And
Mm-hmm.
my wife sometimes is a little jealous. She's like, Tyrone, you are doing these things that, a mother should be doing. I said, I'm doing the things that a parent should be doing. Tell that to the mother who has boys and the dad is absent.
Mm-hmm.
Tell that to the father who has all these girls and the mother's nowhere to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? These girls are getting their cycles and they don't know that we don't do that. My daughter just sent me to the store the other day for that type of thing. And
Yeah.
I had to call and cuss her out. I said, next time you need this, come to the store and get it your own self. I'm standing there looking like a fool for 45 minutes. And she started saying, get the overnight. And I'm looking at 3-4 things that said overnight. And I don't know what the hell.
You just get all of them.
Not me.
He said, not with my money.
Not with
We're
my
not
money.
doing
Right.
that. We're
Right.
definitely not doing that. And so the teaching that comes, is the teaching the same with your son?
Absolutely. The teaching is definitely the same with my son because, with Ayana, you get pregnant, the child more than likely will come home to our house.
Mm-hmm.
With Jacob, the child will more than likely come home, but that's still my blood. So I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
still be as involved. I
Mm-hmm.
still want to see, my child, my
Yeah.
grandchild. So like I said, I'm gonna fight over mine. I'm gonna still pray
Mm-hmm.
without ceasing. So yes, and I'm gonna tell my son, if you cannot take care of it, wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be doing nothing out here free balling. And you can't take care of it because all it takes is one time.
All it takes is one
And I
time.
tell my daughter, I said, men trap women when they realize they come from a home with money. So
Mm-hmm.
don't be stupid.
Well, let's talk about that. So, did your wife come from financial means?
She did. She came from an extremely wealthy family.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Was that cut off when?
no, it was not.
Really?
It was not. It was not cut off. The children now have properties there.
Mm-hmm.
They all have like buildings and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
already, so yeah.
And now, was that a little bit intimidating? Because I don't know how much money you would have been making at 26, but I'm sure it's not comparable to what you make now.
Right.
since but do you feel like you were able to provide for her in the manner that you saw in your head during that season?
I definitely was able to provide according to the United States government because when I married her, I had to submit at least 10 years of my taxes.
Wow.
When I had to go to the customs.
Uh-huh.
When you go into international marriage, they want to make sure it's not a scam.
Yeah.
And so you have to go and you both have to be interviewed by immigrations and all that. And so then they asked me to provide my taxes to say that she won't be on any type of government assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that it worked that way. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
So yeah, we did it over there in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went together the first time, and then they interviewed me, and then at a later date they interviewed her.
Mm-hmm.
And so your answers have to pretty much match, or they will deem it a fake marriage. But
Wow.
once children come into play, they figure, if it's for profit, they're not bringing kids into it.
I mean, I have a cousin, and this was probably over 20 years ago, but he married a Russian lady, and it was strictly for paper, but they did have a baby.
Right.
So, I mean, people definitely do that, but that's very interesting how what the process is when it comes to that, like how they try really hard to not have that be a thing.
Right.
And then I think it was a couple of months ago, I knew somebody and they were looking for someone to marry so they could bring someone over, and I tried to put my cousin on, but that didn't work out.
You know what? I know people that do that, and they are so serious with it that they enter into same-sex marriages. Because a marriage is a marriage is a
Oh.
marriage.
I didn't
And-
even think about
yeah.
that people would do that.
Yeah, I know some people that's done that, and I kept thinking to myself, how's this person here without this? And they're like, oh, well, my cousin ended up marrying them.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, really?
Hmm.
So, to each their own,
Yeah, I guess that would open the door wide open.
Yeah, and those types of things are acceptable now. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's for sure. What kind of things were you unaware of that would that have happened in your marriage? Like, were you blindsided by anything?
Um, in marriage, I think in-laws, fortunately, I haven't. Now, my father-in-law, he, he spoke some English.
Mm-hmm.
He gave, I found out later, there were things that he was like, he didn't necessarily approve of or like. I found out that his mother, had she been alive, would have definitely not approved of it.
Mm.
But I've been blessed to have amazing in-laws because it was my prayer. Because I knew that I was more than likely going to end up dating outside my marrying outside my race.
Mm-hmm.
I would pray, Lord, I want my mother-in-law to love me like she gave birth to me.
Wow.
So that was always my prayer.
Yeah.
Because in marriage, you are going to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
In marriage, you're going to argue. In marriage, you're going to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted my mother-in-law to love me like she gave birth to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that part of your story is that you were very intentional about your prayers. Being that I was a teenager when I got married, my prayers were very, very shallow.
Mm.
One of them was I wanted him to have brown hair, and I wanted to know him before I knew him, and that actually happened because he was seeing my ex sister-in-law for a hot second
Wow, wow, wow,
or
wow.
so, and I remember seeing him, but he didn't know that I saw him or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted him to be a bad guy who turned into a good guy. And sure enough, he had gotten saved. He did a lot of stuff. He went to jail, and then he got saved in jail. And then when he came out, I don't know how. May have been probably less than a year or so. And at that point, we met. So,
Mm.
like, they were very. Would I do that now as a grown woman? Oh, my list would be much more detailed than that, you know.
Right.
But yeah,
Mm.
that's,
Wow.
I think that's very interesting about like the things that you asked God for and how He supplied that.
Yeah, I
Um,
wanted to make sure that, I wasn't, being shot at. Yeah, so, but my mother-in-law, her name was Ty also.
mm-hmm.
And we would go out to karaoke and stuff. And so whenever my wife would do something that I felt was not conducive to who we were becoming
Mm-hmm.
as a unit, I would say, that's not God. I would say, Takako, that's not God. That's not God. And so my mother-in-law picked that up. She was like, not God, Takako. Not. And so my wife's name is Takako. And so
uh,
in Japanese, to call someone stupid is baka.
mm-hmm.
And so my mother-in-law would call my wife Bakako. And it was a joke. And she would say, Tyrone, Bakako, Bakako.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever my wife would get mad or whatever, like she went to give my wife a hug one day or move some hair on her face. And my wife kind of flinched because it was suddenly for my wife. And my mother-in-law ended up jabbing my wife in the eye, ripping her contact.
Oh no.
And my wife was about to unleash hell on her.
Mm.
And I had to pull her back. I said, that is not acceptable. That is not God. You do not hit your mother. And so the things that we do in the black community, because that's, hitting your mother in our community comes with caskets.
Listen,
But
he is
in their
told no lie.
community, it's the everyday norm. And so
Really?
yeah, oh my God. Well, not the everyday norm, but it's a lot more acceptable.
Then what it would
And
be.
so I was like, that is not God. We will not hit.
Yeah.
And so my mother-in-law was grateful on a regular
Mm-hmm.
for me. And she was always like, not God, not God. And so when my brother-in-law told my wife, you can, Ty can be Christian and you can be, Buddhist. My mother-in-law was like, no. She married him. She knew what he was. So she's Christian. I don't want my daughter to be in another country living and she's unhappy.
Wow.
I don't want my daughter to be in another country and, be dealing with this. So whatever he is, that's what she is.
Mm-hmm. And then are her parents living?
They are
still?
not. They've been dead for a while now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they ever become Christian or?
No,
Or
they did not. They did not. They were, Buddhist, but
mm-hmm.
my father-in-law was he turned out to be a wonderful man. He was always a wonderful man. Let me say, he was always a wonderful man.
Mm-hmm.
I got to experience that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he would always tell me stuff like, Ty, I know that black people contributed a lot
Mm-hmm.
to society, and the white people would say that they're not this, and the white people would say they're not that. I'm aware, and he would always tell me, I want you to be great like Dr. Martin Luther King.
Really?
So he would
Wow.
always tell me to be great like him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have a father?
I knew who my father was growing up. He was not always in my life.
Mm-hmm.
He left my mother when he went to work one day and then come home. And I was 12 at that time. And so I've always known him
Mm-hmm.
and decent, but he was just not there.
And then was that before you had your incident?
It was
Or,
after the incident.
oh my gosh.
Hmm.
So that year of you being 12 was just
It was
absolutely
rough. It was
horrendous
rough.
then.
It was rough.
Wow.
My mother would go to work because we were upper middle class, so she didn't work. And so
Mm-hmm.
then she went from not working to working 3 jobs.
Mm.
Um, and we would stay with my aunt, and my mother would say, I'm gonna come get you guys at the end of the week. And my aunt would, go to get my mom to pick up from, the bus station or what have you. And then she would come back and she'd say, your mom, so she'll get y'all next week. And I would just go up the
Mm.
stairs crying because while my younger brothers were enjoying, I was battling internally with all
Mm.
that. And so for me, I definitely felt a spirit of rejection.
Of course.
Yeah, I felt,
Yeah.
very rejected.
Mm.
Um, so I would battle, that. And so growing up, um, yeah, it was not an easy thing for me. Yeah,
And then has there been a point where you've gotten counseling or did you just work that thing out by yourself?
I turned to God,
Mm.
and I'm being very honest. All that time, every night, constantly asking God to take me. I
Mm.
remember going to bed at night, and I would hold my breath to see how long I could hold it before I would need to take a breath because I was wanting to know if death was painful.
Hmm.
And I kept saying, God, take me, take me, take me. And one day, when I asked God to take me, I heard a voice say, I'm coming. And it was not like any other voice I had ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
And it became almost like a ritual of sorts. At night, I would talk to God and I would say, God, when are you coming? When are
Mm-hmm.
you coming? And he would say, I'm coming. I'm coming soon. And I began to know the voice of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And so God began to speak things and God began to say this. And so, for me, darkness became, my friend. Like I would go to bed and
Mm.
lock the door.
Mm-hmm.
And so when God began to speak to me, I remember getting up, um, running throughout the house, asking, did someone call me?
Mm-hmm.
Because my room was at the end of the hall. And I remember, asking my mom, could me and my brothers, swap out rooms because their room was at the beginning of the hall.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be at the end because I felt like in order for somebody now to get me, they have to come through all this,
Yeah.
all these other rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And so she did. And so I remember being at church. My grandmother, drug us to church. And so I was her constant partner. Um, and I remember being in a church one night and this prophetess was saying to me, and she wasn't saying to me, she was saying to the congregation that night. She was like, God will speak. God will speak to you like he's speaking, like we're speaking right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, you say, yes, Lord, your servant heareth. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought to myself, And I said, the next time this happens, this is what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it happened again, I did. And that voice told me to come boldly to the throne of grace. And I said, what throne? What grace? What, And I've had a relationship with God ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just led to, and I think because of the things that happened to me, it certainly birthed, you know, a maturity there. Because when my mother went to work, that meant as the eldest,
You got
I
to
had
take
to,
care.
I had
Yeah.
to cook, I had to clean.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother would say, I want this house to be clean. I want it to be spotless. If this house is dirty when I get back, I'm not going to whoop them. I'm going to whoop you. And so I got
Mm-hmm.
whippings, because my brother tore up the house right before she walked in.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I would hear Michael Jackson say he didn't have a childhood, I understood. You know, I was like, well, shit, I ain't famous like that, but I understand. You know, I had a
Yeah.
Joe Jackson too. Her name was Ruthie.
Oh.
And so even now, to this day we're in, you know, when people look at all the things I've accomplished versus my brothers, usually the thing they ask is, are y'all related? Do y'all
Mm-hmm.
have the same mom and dad? Yeah, because it's very different for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what would you tell your younger self about love, relationships, marriage, all the things?
I would tell my younger self, it's okay to dream. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try again and not be so critical of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Um, and understand that when people tell you you can't do something,
Mm-hmm.
they're not telling you what you can do. They're telling you what they can do
Projecting.
because
Yeah.
you can't possibly know my limits. You can only tell me yours.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Ty, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming today.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. And for you all, there's another show in the book, down in the books. Please like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment. I want to talk to y'all. So thank you. All right.